Um, okay, I believe I'm live. So it's another live stream from myself. Why isn't the desktop audio playing? That's weird. That should be there. Desktop audio. It's not a big deal. But yeah, that's a bit weird why that isn't playing. Okay, that's fine. I don't really care. Okay, so it's just a live stream. I've made a few live streams. I'm certainly not very good, but that is fine. I don't have to be very good. It's quite okay for me to be quite mediocre. Mediocre. You're not paying me to do anything, and indeed, I don't even have any viewers. So, what does it matter? Should I not be any good? Anyway, so what am I going to do? I'm making a few, half a dozen or so live streams just like this one. Normally go for about an hour. Not sure how much energy I will have today. I guess we shall find out. Um, but what are we going to do? I'm going to be looking at quite a few articles. I've got more than 50 lined up. There's no way on this planet that I'm going to be going through more than 50, but there will be a few that I will go through, and these are videos that I've found by scouring online news publications that I tend to scour. So I look every day at a number of different online publications: Daily Mail, Breitbart, Daily Wire, Daily Beast, Drudge Report, Post Millennial, Guardian, City Morning Herald, Reuters, Associated Press, the Daily Caller, Forbes, The Independent. I also go through my Feedly feed, and I just look for articles which strike me from my level of ignorance as being either interesting or important, or a mixture of the two. And there's a shitload of interesting articles out there at the moment. I'm just going to watch myself on YouTube to see if the audio is okay. For articles which strike me. Yeah, there's definitely no music playing. Is that why? Is that why? There's a shitload of interesting articles out there at the moment. I'm just gonna watch myself on YouTube and see if the audio's okay. That's weird. Okay, alright, that's fine. Doesn't matter, I have no concurrent viewers, even when I watch it myself. That's interesting. Okay, so I've got a shitload of articles here. I'm not going to go through all of them, and some of them I'm just going to go through very briefly. But and a few of these articles will date back, give or take, about a week. But there's been so many things going on in the last week. Can you remember the coronavirus? Yeah, I mean that was a thing, but that seems like old news. We've had Biden. He's got into a bit of a state, Biden. He's made a bit of a mess with the black community, so we'll have a look at that perhaps. What else has been going on? Oh yeah, we've got Donald Trump against social media. What else have we got going on? We've got Muslims around the world defying the coronavirus lockdown. We've got China planning dozens of high-level biosafety labs. We got some trans subjects going on, which I'll probably skip. We've got Representative Iman Omar supporting Biden, even though she believes him to be a rapist. I mean, there's some holy shit nonsense going on, but I'm going to start off with a few articles and maybe several articles in regards to the riots going on in the United States at the moment. And I've seen a headline saying that things are kicking off in Toronto, Canada as well, for the same reasons. Oh, purportedly for the same reasons, you know, against the due to the George Floyd situation. So it's become international to some degree. So let's have a look at this first article here. Attorney General Bill Barr says violence appears planned by far-left groups using Antifa-like tactics. And we see a picture here. It looks like a stock photo of Antifa clad in black. So we've seen Antifa many, many times. They go around Portland and various other places and they throw concrete mix at journalists like, what's that guy's name? Andy Chow? I've probably got that wrong. But, you know, these are nasty pieces of work. Antifa as in anti-fascist, fighting against the fascist regime. And they claim that Trump and pretty much anyone who's white, especially if they're male, is a fascist. And they've been going around for a while now, haven't they? You know, remember a few years back when we had Milo going to the universities and doing speeches, along with Ben Shapiro, I mean separately, but also Ben Shapiro was going to universities, doing a tour of university, giving speeches, Jordan Peterson too. All of these guys, particularly Milo, was victim of threats, violent threats, protests, violent protests, and all sorts of situations caused by Antifa. Um, and I think it was Milo who had two extreme situations, if I recall, both in Berkeley University, if I understand. And there was quite significant rioting, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage caused by Antifa and radical left-wing students, I believe I'm right in saying, at these universities. And what happened? What was the response? What was the response by the media, by the public, by the authorities concerned? Well, the authorities concerned, the police, did fuck all. They allowed these riots to occur. I remember there were the Proud Boys, being a right-wing group, were the only guys to stand up and attack Antifa, or rather defend against Antifa. What happened to them? Well, they got disbanded pretty much, to some extent. The founder, Gavin McInnes, abandoned the group, not out of any reason other than just to reduce the prospect, the likelihood that the men concerned that were arrested for an attack or a response to an attack, just to reduce the likelihood that they would get jail time. And I believe the Proud Boys still exists, it still goes on, but it's died down, and I've not seen their involvement in these current riots. They don't have the manpower. There are tens of thousands of people, I'm guessing, I mean, certainly thousands of people in major cities, Minnesota, Atlanta, New York, wherever else. You're as knowledgeable about this as me. The Proud Boys with a couple of dozen big beefy fellas, they can't join in this fight. These guys, the Antifa, the radical left, they've got the numbers. They've got the numbers. They've seemingly have cracked into the mainstream. They're getting the local people riled. Actually, I might be wrong now. I mean, in this article here, I believe it's going to tell us that, or another one, it's going to tell us that Trump believes that 80% of the people in the Minnesota riots aren't from the Minnesota region. So let's have a quick look at this article. I'll tell you what, before we do, let's have a look at some of the live streams. So if you think my video is boring, which it is, then you are more than welcome to check out some more interesting videos. Here's a few live streamers. This one is Reg Incognito, and I've been watching him for the last couple of nights. He's getting great footage of the riots in the daytime, in the night. Now he's saying here that the National Guard is about to, enforce a mandatory curfew very, very shortly, right about now. And I've been watching a little bit of this stream, and he has been saying the National Guard are going to be rolling up at one of these intersections. Could be right here, right now in front of our eyes. It looks like there's a police car, maybe it isn't. But yeah, I mean, this is crazy footage, and it is very interesting. So there you go. There's Reg Incognito, and then there's some more which don't seem to be live right now. Maybe these guys are Unicorn Riot, and I've noticed that these guys, their subs have gone through the roof just in the last few days from following from their activity, reporting on these riots. Um, this one isn't live right now, but it's very popular, 65,500 subs. This guy is a good guy. Life is GQ. He's not live. He has problems. His streams get jammed quite a lot, but it's worth bookmarking him and subbing to him and checking him out from time to time. If he is live, he's getting a very interesting footage. Another one, Alien Alphabet, he's been doing a little bit. I think there are other live streamers as well. They're far more interesting than this video. Go watch some. Back to this article. Attorney General William Barr said Saturday that violence in many places around the country appears to have been planned and carried out by far-left extremist groups using Antifa-like tactics in the wake of riots over the death of George Floyd. Here's a quote: "Unfortunately, with the rioting that is occurring in many of our cities around the country, the voices of peaceful protests are being hijacked by violent radical elements. Groups of outside radical agitators are exploiting the situation to pursue their own separate and violent agenda." His quote continues, "In many places, it appears the violence is planned, organized, and driven by anarchic and leftist extremist groups, far-left extremist groups using Antifa-like tactics, many of whom traveled outside the state to promote the violence." Okay, and Barr's comments come shortly after President Donald Trump fingered leftist groups such as Antifa for widespread rioting and looting. Here's a quote from Trumpy's tweet: "It's Antifa and the radical left. Don't lay the blame on others." Who's he talking to when he says don't lay the blame on others? Who's he talking to? I guess he's talking to everyone. I guess he's talking to the media, arguably first and foremost, but he's talking to the rioters themselves, perhaps, and also members of the public, because there are these statements saying that these riots have been caused by the white supremacists, and how can they say these things with a straight face? I mean, to me, I just see so many people on the left as being blatant liars. Blatant liars. I'm no expert, but you watch an interview with Pelosi or Schumer or any of these guys, Sanders, and they are disingenuous to the core. They are not being truthful. They are not talking to introduce facts to members of the public, the American public. They're not doing that. They lie, they twist, they manipulate to push their agenda, their strategy, and their strategy is to say that Trump is a fascist, that Trump supporters are fascists and white supremacists and all of this kind of thing. We just see it so much, and we're seeing it here with these rioters, with these looters, with these protesters, which I'm reluctant to say because protesting is one thing. I personally am not a big fan of protesting, but I can see that it has value. But rioting is something else. And these guys that are protesting, sure, right now they might be walking in the streets, not causing any damage yet. I mean, they perhaps did last night or earlier today, or every now and then. But we know what's going to happen. I'm gonna look into the future here. What's going to happen is either the National Guard are effective and scare these guys away, and hopefully that is what happens from my point of view. And there's nothing wrong with being scared away. I mean, look, if you've got a barrel of a gun pointed at you, yeah, fucking run, please. So that might be the case, or what else? These guys go on for day 4, day 5, the evening 5 of rioting. They burn some more buildings down. Maybe they only burned down half a dozen. I mean, that would be a good night if they only burned down half a dozen buildings, seemingly. I don't know how many buildings they've burnt down, but it seems like dozens, many, many buildings. I've seen, I can think of at least a dozen buildings that I've watched these live streams that have been burning. It's well more than dozens. It's, I mean, it could be as many as 100, or hopefully not more than 100. It's crazy. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. But anyway, look, these guys aren't white supremacists. These are not white supremacists. These are the leftists. And you know that. You know that they all have the same political agenda, because if they go, fuck Trump, and fuck the police and all of this. And if you were to go be in this crowd of protesters and say, well, hang on, no, let's not fuck Trump. No, Trump's pretty cool. Good on you, Trumpy. What's going to happen? You're going to get decapitated. That's what would happen. You will get absolutely fucking pummeled by the women just as much as the men. They'll join in. They'll kick you in the head. They'll do whatever they can to harm, to lash out. These are not a friendly bunch. They have their agenda. They know that they're in the right. They know that they're doing the right thing. In their brain dead brains, What is this? It says Viva la Revolution. It's not a revolution. A revolution has aims. You're trying to change one situation to implement another situation, another system. These guys don't have a fucking clue as to, number one, why they're attacking the current system, and number two, what kind of system they want to bring in. Okay, so there's a lot of police officers, or it could be the National Guard. It looks like they've got to that head-on position. So yeah, go check out this guy Reg Incognito. Let's listen to him for a second. Not sure if you'll be able to hear him. Okay, could be that it's the video is getting jammed. That's been happening to a lot of these live streamers. Their video, and the video in particular just gets cuts out when they're in close vicinity to the police. So there we go. It looks like it's cutting out. Could be my internet, but no, the chat's saying jammers. They're saying F for failed. So look, let's move away from that. We can come back to that a little later. Oh, it's still trickling along a little bit. Yeah, so look, that's what this article is saying. The article moves on. Protests erupted in dozens of cities across the United States overnight as activists called for the justice for the death of Floyd in Minneapolis. Minneapolis Governor Tim Walz called on protesters to disperse early Saturday morning after a non-violent demonstration there turned to riots, looting, and vandalization. Here's a quote from the governor of Minneapolis. The absolute chaos. This is not grieving, and this is not making a statement that we fully acknowledge needs to be fixed. This is dangerous. You need to go home. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I agree with that. Like the whole George Floyd situation, if a layman idiot like you or like me could watch the video, we all think the same thing. Why the fuck has he got his knee on the guy's neck? I mean, that just does not seem required, does it? It seems not a good idea. But, I'm not a medical practitioner, nor are you. And the guy was saying, I can't breathe. And he did die subsequently. So we know that, everyone watches that and they are disgusted. And the finger is being pointed at at the officers concerned, especially the one in particular, by everybody. No one's saying, oh, it's not so bad, don't worry about it. No one is saying that. Now, having said that, I've watched a Stefan Molyneux video, and he points to some new evidence, I believe, and I'm no expert here, but points to some new evidence that George Floyd did resist arrest, and resisting arrest would increase the need or justification for the officers to use force in restraining the apprehender, so George in this case. So, apparently he did resist arrest, and apparently he's a cocaine addict, or was a cocaine addict, and that can affect your ability, your functions, your heart rate, and all of this kind of thing. In addition to that, so I'm saying that there could be, or Stefan Molyneux is suggesting that there could have been particular medical circumstances that you wouldn't expect due to the guy's cocaine habit, or at least previous cocaine habit. Um, so, and also autopsy report, I believe, is suggesting that there's no evidence that he died from asphyxiation. I mean, I don't know how that works. I don't know how that works, but the point that I'm making is, and it's really, I'm just echoing Stefan Molyneux's point. I don't know how good of a point it is, or rather, it is a very good point. I don't know how valid and correct a point it is, but there is evidence to suggest that police were right to use force, more force than anyone would particularly like, because he was resisting arrest. And there is evidence that, in fact, or preliminary evidence that in fact he did not die due to asphyxiation. He died due to some other medical conditions, perhaps. So this is crazy. But I mean, even with that, we got these riots, and the riots are saying, "Oh, we want justice, we want justice." Okay, the guy's been arrested. He's been charged with murder as well as manslaughter, as far as I'm aware. So the authorities have reacted. Did they react in the first instance? Arguably not. So I think you can say, hey, look, the protests were justified. If this was something which was quite obviously, even if incorrectly, it just seemed like police brutality, which led to the death of an innocent man, then that kind of justifies protests. That justifies protests. But the authorities have gone on and they've done what they can. They said, look, okay, yeah, fine, we're going to charge him. No, we're not going to throw him in jail for the rest of his life without a trial, but we've charged him, and he will face a full trial, almost certainly. So the authorities have done what they can. They can't do any more. So isn't that the point that the protesters need to go, oh, okay, great. Well, result, the authorities hadn't arrested the police officers concerned. We protested, and now they have. What's going on? They're all running. Oh shit. Flashbangs. Flashbangs. Yeah, flashbangs. Rubber bullets. All right, so it's now kicking off. The National Guard are forcing the scattering of the protesters. Pretty chaotic. I mean, it's a stampede. People get hurt in stampedes. We can see Reg isn't talking. He's too busy trying to get the fuck out of there. Reg, you're standing still. I think you need to keep on moving, mate. So, whew. I've heard Reg say, look, he's not looking to stick around. As soon as things kick off, he's going to get out of there. He wanted to get some footage of the National Guard's interaction with the public, but then when it's time to leave, he's going to get the fuck out. So we can see that he's trying to do that. It's going to be very difficult. But I wonder what the National Guard will do. They've attacked with the flashbangs and the rubber bullets, and the protesters have complied, I would say. In this instance, at least, the protesters are getting the fuck out of there. They are complying right now. Maybe that changes. But anyway, that's what's happening right now. So back to this article. Gonna have a look at some of the comments. So one of the commentators say, Antifa-like. It is Antifa. It is Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a Black Panther-like black supremacist militant group. Both are human scum and need to be decimated by any means necessary. And someone responds to that comment by saying, why is it that when a black football player kneels, he is lauded and given a shoe contract by Nike, I think to the value of around 50 million, but when a police officer kneels in performance of his duty, the communist mob cries for murder charges? Oh, swell guy, come on, mate. That's not the same thing, is it? I mean, the guy did die. So anyway, there's that article. So look at the mob. Look at the mob. Are these the mobs? Is it white supremacists? Or are they BLM supporters? I mean, we know the answer. I was watching it earlier, and there was a black speaker. I would argue a Black Power speaker. I don't know what group he was affiliated with, but he was, trying to be a leader. And in my mind, he's just provoking the protesters, saying, look, we've just had 3 nights of fucking burning the city down. Let's not stop now. Let's fight for justice. Mate, you've done it already. You've fought. You've burnt down half the city. Isn't that enough? When are you going to stop? When are you going to stop? Are you going to stop when they've charged the officers' concerns? Because, hello, that's exactly what they've done. When are you going to stop now? When's the end point for the protesters? They're unhappy with the system, and they're entitled to be unhappy with the system. Burning it fucking down doesn't fucking help, though, does it? Going to move on to another article, same subject, the US riots. The Minnesota Democrats say white supremacists instigating race riots over black man's death. So yeah, look, I mean, we've just seen Trumpy and Barr saying, hey, look, don't blame the white supremacist. And here we go. The Minnesota Democrats are doing that. They're blaming the white supremacists. White supremacists are instigating race riots over black man's death. I mean, you're just so wrong. I mean, why even bother reading this article? We know that you're wrong. Yeah? So white police officers are involved with the death of a black man in broad daylight whilst the body cams are on, whilst members of the public are videoing them. That causes a death, extremely unfortunate. Possible murder, possible manslaughter. We don't know yet. We don't have all of the facts yet. There hasn't been a trial yet. But that's what it looks like. I mean, it's certainly not an absurd interpretation to have given the footage. But so who's reacted to that? It's not been the white supremacists. It's been Black Lives Matter. It's been Antifa. It's been those people saying, hey, look, this isn't on. This is police brutality against black people, against the black man. That hasn't come from the white supremacists. That's absolutely come from Black Lives Matter and all of that. And, Antifa have got in there to stoke things up. But let's look at the article. Minnesota Democrats Peggy Flanagan accused white supremacists on Saturday of instigating and participating in the widespread riots and looting in her state over the police killing of state resident George Floyd. Flanagan indicated that gangs of white supremacists are taking advantage of the anarchy unfolding in the Twin Cities to sow more chaos. Look, lady, the white supremacists don't need to take advantage. They're doing the damage themselves. Unless she is saying that the Antifa, many of which are white, are indeed the white supremacists, but I believe that would be incorrect. This article carries on with a quote, people should be able to come together and mourn and grieve and demand change and justice in policing and every other racist system that we have that has been part of this state. But in this moment, we cannot, because there are detractors, there are white supremacists, there are anarchists, there are people who are burning down the institutions that are core to our identity and who we are. Flanagan did not name any particular white supremacist group or offer evidence of their presence there. Yeah, she didn't, did she? I mean, there's definitely images, there's definitely video of many people burning properties down. I saw one clip. It was from the LGQ guy, I think, or it could have been Reg. It's one of these guys. And there was a group. I'm going to say like three youths dressed in black. I'm going to suggest that they could have been Antifa. I don't know. But apparently they went into a restaurant which was burning, and they opened up the gas tanks. I can't think of the right term, but they opened up the gas tanks so that the burning, the inferno, would continue and arguably blow up or potentially blow up. I'm going to take a break. I know no one's listening, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, um, let's have a listen to Reg. Alrighty. Okay, so yeah, look, these guys, this Democrat politician is blaming white supremacists. It's bizarre. Um, Here's a tweet by some guy who's verified. Timeline of events so far. Democrats cheered on riots and looting until they realized how bad those things actually are. And now they are desperate to blame phantom Russians and white nationalists so that they have to own the responsibility for the chaos. So they don't have to own the responsibility for the chaos they owned. Sorry. So they don't have to own the responsibility for the chaos they allowed. Yeah, so apparently several reporters at CNN are claiming that white supremacists are to blame for the riots. Here's another tweet. In an historic move, the Minnesota governor is fully mobilizing the state's National Guard to stop the groups of determined criminals who have hijacked peaceful protests. Authorities are now reportedly investigating white supremacists suspected of stoking violence. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's just bizarre. Where's the evidence of these white supremacists? We've got all of these live streamers out there. How many of them have been showing white supremacists? Let's have a look at this comment, a few of the comments here. Democrats are lying their butts off. These are not white supremacists. They are anarchists, communists, and they are being paid and funded by far left groups. These groups are the arm of the Democrat Party, Democrat. They own them. Yeah, look, I agree with this guy here, certainly the first part. I mean, we just see these guys are, I mean, they seem to be Antifa to me, BLM, certainly BLM. I mean, what are they doing? They're just rioting against property. Why would white supremacists be doing that? How could you have the white supremacists do so with the purported motivation being justice for the death of a black man? it doesn't make sense. No, these are BLM. It's fundamentally BLM is the Black Lives Matter is what is being thrust as being the main reason for doing this, but certainly it seems like the actions I'm going to guess have been caused by um, Antifa and those people that just want a revolution. Why do they want a revolution or anarchy? Why do they want that? Why do they want to kick off and just cause chaos and mayhem and damage and death? I believe one white woman was raped and murdered during these protests, I believe. Um, why do they want to do that? Because fuck Trump. That's why. Because fuck Trump. They believe that Trump is a fascist. So I think what's happening here is Antifa has. I think a lot of people are embracing Antifa without realizing it. Um, Antifa are anti-fascist. So these guys, you got the guys wearing the black and the helmets and the bandanas, and they have the political knowledge, the strong political beliefs about having a better way, anarchy. You have these guys, but also you have your average Joe Schmo, leftist nutbag, who all they know is fuck Trump. And they're being shown what to do by Antifa. Antifa are lighting fires, and the Joe Schmo fuck Trumpers are saying, "Oh, that looks like fun, doesn't it?" And they're doing it too, or they're supporting, or they're going, "Yeah, well done." What's going on with that? There's what is that? Laser beams. Reg is saying they've got laser beams. The National Guard have got laser beams. He could be wrong. I don't think he's right. I mean, the U.S. Army have laser beams. That's for sure. We've seen that in articles earlier this week. A U.S. Navy ship, destroyer. Reggie, what a star! What a start. I mean, he's. I say that with no irony at all. I value all of these guys. I don't know what their political beliefs are, but I don't. Reg isn't being political. I don't think. He's there as a reporter first and foremost. Maybe he supports the riots to some extent. I don't think these guys do. I've heard them say this is crazy. This shouldn't be happening. They've said that many times. The Life is GQ guy as well. He goes. He says, "Oh, I wish this would stop." So I don't believe that these guys are in actual support of the riots and the looting. They are able to communicate very well and be accepted by the protesters, by the mob. They're able to, just walk around with no issues or very, very few issues, really with the backing and the support of the protesters. Um, but yeah, ultimately, they're reporting and they're risking their lives to do so. So I respect that. I mean, I guess you could say these protesters are also risking their lives, but fuck them. They are risking their lives, sure, but they're doing so in the pursuit of causing damage, of looting. So I don't. I'm not going to praise them for their intentions. Going to have a look at some other articles still on the same subject. A few of these are a few days old, but we've got Cardi B here. What does she think about the riots in Minnesota? Well, she thinks that the people in Minnesota have no choice but to loot. They have to loot. Of course they do, Cardi. Of course they do. What else are they going to do? Stay at home peacefully, you know, try not to get involved with all of this mess? No, of course not. They have to loot. They got no choice. They don't get to choose to avoid this situation by staying at home. You ridiculous, stupid tart. I do like your music, strangely enough, but you know, your view here is twisted. It's disgusting. But here's the article. Rapper Cardi B says the people who broke into and looted stores in Minnesota were left with no choice but to resort to violence and steal from stores in response to the death of George Floyd, whose neck was kneeled on by former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. Here's a quote from Cardi. They looted in Minnesota, and as much as I don't like this type of violence, it is what it is. Too much peaceful marches, too much trending hashtags, and no solutions. The people are left with no choice. Okay, well, you know what? Maybe I take that back a little bit. I have seen a saying, a popular quote saying that, look, if the authorities don't heed the public's demand, then it does lead to violent protesting as being the only choice, the last resort. But that doesn't justify looting. That doesn't justify looting. Looting serves no purpose other than the temporary benefit of the looter. They gain a few items. That's it. All right, so let's carry on having a look at this article. Nothing real new going on here. I can't click on the videos because I'm permabanned from Twitter. It won't let me watch the videos on my Twitter account. Fucking ridiculous. Here's a quote. At my request, the FBI and the Department of Justice are already well into an investigation as to the very sad and tragic death in Minnesota of George Floyd. Trump wrote, I have asked for this investigation to be expedited and greatly appreciate all of the work done by local law enforcement. My heart goes out to George's family and friends. Justice will be served. So look, Trumpy has reached out to the public through Twitter saying, look, we're going to look into this, okay? Justice will be served. Now, maybe those words are considered to be hollow by some of the people, maybe George's family and friends, don't like those words. They don't believe those words. And I think that's would be kind of understandable should that be the case. Yes, but you know, he is Trump. He is. I'm going to say stepping up, and I'm going to say stepping up in his attempt to reach out to the black community or those that are upset, the protesters, to say, hey, look, guys, chill out. You know, none of us are happy about the situation. It will get looked into. It won't be allowed to be swept under the carpet. If any kind of corruption has so far occurred by not addressing the officer's actions immediately, then that's going to be rectified. It's going to be fully public. It's going to be fully transparent. We're going to look into this properly. And he had a similar response to the Arnault. I believe I got the name right. The black guy who was jogging after going into a construction site. Trumpy came out and said, look, it's not good. You know, I've seen the video and I'm not happy about it. Doesn't look good. And after that, I believe after that, the father and son that were responsible for the shooting were arrested. I believe I'm right in saying, and also the guy videoing the situation was arrested. Now on that, it seems, again, I'm just going through, going by the information presented by Stefan Molyneux, but for that situation, my view is that seemingly, not necessarily guaranteed to be the case, but seemingly Arnault was attempting to wrestle the shotgun out of the son's hands. So if that's going to happen, if that is the case, if Arnault was wrestling a shotgun, then I think arguably the men concerned do have the right to shoot. So there we go. Look, Reg is showing his hand quite a lot. Well, Reg, I mean, it's your glove. Your glove is fucked, but your hand's okay, mate. You know, we saw in the Paris riots multiple cases of people with their hands blown off. They pick up the smoke grenades or such, or the flashbangs, and they blow up. So I don't know if that's what Reg did, but Reg, your hand looks pretty good, mate. You know, maybe it hurts at the moment a little bit, but could have been far worse. Don't pick up the flashbangs. All right, so let's have a look at another article. Let's have a look at another article. Here we go. What does Madonna have to say about the riots in Minnesota? Well, she says, fuck the police. That's what she says. Left-wing pop icon Madonna lambasted all police in the wake of continued protests in Minneapolis in response to the death of George Floyd. Here's a quote. Watching this cop suffocate George Floyd with his knee on his neck, handcuffed and helpless, crying for his life, with his face in the street is the most sickening, heartbreaking thing I've seen in a long time. This officer knew he was being filmed and murdered him with arrogance and pride. This has to stop. Pride. I don't know why pride has got a capital P there. Look, Madonna, your viewpoint is shared by literally everybody, or almost everybody, because you know, there is some questions as to whether or not he died due to asphyxiation. Seemingly, you know, there's evidence saying that he didn't. But even so, they, you know, this is too ugly for me. You know, it's too ugly. He's restrained. He's on the ground. He's cuffed. Why do any police officer need to put their knee on the guy? He's surrounded by cops. If the perpetrator, the black guy being arrested, if he was to kick off again, you've got enough people to restrain him, enough officers. This practice needs to stop, and we've all seen many videos and clips, and maybe some of it is from Hollywood. We've seen the clips of where the police officers slam the perpetrators onto the ground, onto the street, or onto a car, which is going to cause serious injury. They do so with too much aggression, too much force. Now, there's definitely going to be times when that aggression is absolutely justified, or when you know, the officers are in a heat of the moment situation. These guys have not got to act in the moment just for the sake of acting in the moment. They've got to act in the moment because they got to prepare themselves for what next could happen, what could happen next. So it's not, you know, these guys are in very difficult situations. They've got to be given some leeway for using force. They have to, because if they don't use force, then they can be overrun. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's got to be a justification of some level of force, but at the same time, this is so ugly. This image here of kneeling down on a guy, especially in the knowledge that the guy died. I mean, if we were to be confident that no one's ever going to die from this ever, then okay, fine, I suppose, carry on kneeling on people's necks. But I mean, it's not a good look. So anyway, Madonna is saying, what is she saying? She's saying it's a disgusting, sickening situation, and it is, Madonna. Yeah, no one's disagreeing with you, and this has to stop. Okay, look, well, what has to stop? I mean, we should have no more police officers? Of course we should have police officers. What has to stop? The police officers have to stop using force? Well, no, they have to use force. You know, force is going to be a requirement for any police force. You know, because the criminals don't say, oh, okay, fair enough, you've caught me, no worries, cuff me up, fellas, take me to jail. They don't do that. They resist arrest. And apparently there's evidence of George Floyd resisting arrest. So what needs to stop? I mean, you could say, if you're saying, look, the practice of 4 officers restraining a man, the practice of a police officer kneeling on the guy's neck, if you're going to say what needs to stop is someone kneeling, a police officer kneeling on the guy's neck, even after the person being arrested has said that they can't breathe, then yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely, I agree with that. But let's not pretend that because some of those aspects do need to stop, that it's okay to start rioting, that it's a justification to riot, protest, loot. It is a justification to protest. Peaceful protesting is fine. I'm not a huge fan of it, but certainly peaceful protesting has purpose, and peaceful protesting doesn't really have too much of a downside. It's a bit of a waste of time. It can be an inconvenience to certain people, but largely there's no significant harm caused by peaceful protesting. Anyway, so look, there's this article. Let's have a look at a few of the comments here. Not surprising, since Madonna would fuck just about anything. Well, that's slut shaming there, commentator. I don't support that. The mental one speaks again. Madonna the loon. Well, she might be a bit of a loon, but I mean, look, we all agree with what she's saying in this. I mean, there is vagueness in the last part of what she's saying, and there's overly harshness by saying "fuck the police." Yeah, so did she say "fuck the police"? This quote here doesn't say "fuck the police." All right, so yeah, Madonna continued to go, until we can overcome racism in America, no one should be allowed to carry a gun. Okay, that's being a lunatic. Most of all, cops. God bless you, George Floyd. I'm so sorry for you and your family, and all the senseless killings that have gone before you. Will it ever end? I pray to God it does one day. Until then, fuck the police. Yeah, I said it. I'm not interested in being politically correct. I'm interested in justice. Well, I think being politically correct, being PC, you're allowed to say fuck the police. You're allowed to be aggressive from a left-wing point of view, especially towards those of a right-wing point of view, or those considered to be white people. You're allowed to be aggressive and un-PC if you're coming from the left. It's only a problem, Madonna, if you're coming from the right. That's the only point that you're going to get cancelled, be victim of cancel culture. So you're fine, Madonna. There's no worries with you saying fuck the police. You're allowed to, because you guys on the left are allowed to do and say whatever the fuck you want with no consequences. Yeah, you won't get called a fascist. You'll get called a loon, but that's all. That's all. You won't get called a fascist for calling for the end of the right for Americans to carry guns, to bear arms. No, you won't be called a fascist for that. You'll just be called a lunatic. Ice Cube, what does Ice Cube have to say? He says this quote here. How long will we go for blue on black crime before we strike back? He said on Twitter. So, you know, he's saying, guys, Black Lives Matter. This is another case where a black man was unjustly killed by the officers. It's happened before, it keeps happening. It's been happening ever since he made his movie, Boys in the Hood. Great movie. It was happening then, it's happening now. When are we going to strike back? So look, this is you striking back, burning down businesses in Minnesota, burning down businesses, defacing property, smashing windows, starting fires, burning cars, creating blockades. This is you striking back. I mean, why hasn't Black Lives Matter thought this through? If they're going to strike back, why aren't they striking back in an effective manner, a positive manner, a manner which is going to lead, or at least have the chance of leading to positive change? Or is that what you think you're doing? You think that burning buildings down is going to lead to positive change? I mean, you could be right. It could be right. It could be the situation that the authorities go, okay, fucking hell, we can't have any more black perpetrators dying at the hands of the police, because every time that happens, there's a fucking major riot going on. So that's no good. So all of you white police officers, you're going to have to be even more careful than you currently are about using force. Um, kind of, I don't know, man. I mean, maybe part of the blame could be pointed towards the criminals. I mean, why are these guys being arrested or coming into conflict in the first place? Why is that? It's because they're being criminals. Correct me if I'm wrong. Call me an asshole. But I believe that's largely the case. I mean, it seems to me that it's the case in the Arnaud situation. It seems to me that he was scoping out a property for burglary. That property had suffered burglaries already. There he was going for a nice afternoon jog in his steel cap boots. Don't believe it, son. Don't believe it, mate. He was a criminal. What's going on with George Floyd? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Apparently he resisted arrest. I don't know why he was being arrested. Is that even being talked about? I don't think it is. I mean, I've read a few articles about the subject, and I haven't seen that. Let's have a look at a few commentators on this article. 10 of Bathhouse Barry's sons murdered in Chicago this weekend, and Mayor Lightenfoot is locking people up going to church. Yeah, so this guy is saying, hey, look at the number of black men, young black men, that are dying at the hands of gangs in Chicago. 10 this weekend. I mean, it's 10 or 20 every weekend, isn't it? So why does this death justify all of this rioting, protests, damage? What about what's going on in these black communities, these inner city black communities with the gangs? Why are there gangs? What's fueling the gangs? Drugs, drug use. And it's been facilitated by drug culture, by gang culture, you know. I'm a fan of NWA. I'm a fan of gangster rap. It's very exciting. It's very entertaining. It's adrenaline inducing. It's great. But look at what's happening. People think. I mean, maybe I'm making a false connection here, but it seems to me that the people in these protests are young. They're relatively young, aren't they? They're in their 20s. They're in their 30s. They're young people, and they're being violent. And what's the most popular form of music? Hip hop has been for a long time. Am I putting the blame to hip hop? I'm saying, yeah, I am. I mean, I'm not the sole blame, but I kind of feel that, look, fuck the police. Where does that come from? It comes from NWA. Fuck the police. That's the rhetoric. Fuck Trump. Who said that? Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg. Um, you know, hip hop culture is supportive of violence, and we have violence here, so I think it's kind of reasonable to question hip hop. Reggie's doing what he wants to do, and maybe he's doing what he feels he needs to do. He doesn't want to be associated with anyone other than the thugs right now, because it's the thugs that are going to cause damage against those that aren't the thugs. So Reggie, you carry on doing what you need to do. And I'll look at this article here. Kathy Griffin says Trump being stabbed with a syringe full of air would do the trick. Yeah, I mean, that's what she says. Here's her tweet. Syringe with nothing but air inside it would do the trick. Fuck Trump. So Kathy Griffin, the woman who's had her career destroyed when she showed a picture of her holding up a plastic mock decapitation of Trump's head. Following that, she was, she had a career severely hampered, and she's back. She's trying to cause more controversy for herself by, arguably instigating people to murder, assassinate Donald Trump. When are you going to stop, Kathy? When are you going to stop? Why aren't your peers, why aren't your audience saying to you in a significant way, in a meaningful way, Kathy, you're being a fucking weirdo, you're being a lunatic? Why aren't they saying that? Why haven't they said that to you, Kathy? Why have you been allowed to just like foster this extreme hate, this calling for the death of your president? I mean, where does that come from? Because you can't say, oh, well, it comes from Trump being a fascist. Well, where does that come from? What evidence do you have of that? You don't have any. He's not a fascist. He's not a bad person by any means. So where does this hatred come from? It's a really bizarre question. I mean, this is my opinion. So many people on the left have this insane hatred of Trump, and this insane hatred of all white people. I think that last part's accurate to some extent, but where does it come from? There's no evidence. Oh, they're going to say, oh, there's plenty of evidence against white people being bad. Just look at capitalism. Just look at the oppression of blacks and whoever else. Just look at George Floyd. So they do view that as evidence of, white supremacy and all of this, I guess. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, does it come from disinformation stemming from Russia or China or Iran? Does it stem from disinformation and unrest stoked by the likes of Soros and these activist groups? Has all of that rhetoric coming from the education system, Democrats, leftism, has it caused mass mental destabilization? It has. Here's what I'm going to say. Seemingly, this ongoing rhetoric, this anti-Trumpness, this anti-whiteness, this the climate control is part of the mix. They're saying, oh, capitalism is bad because of climate control. The system is bad because of climate control. Everything needs to change because of climate control. It's pushed a large amount of the population of Western nations to believe that the system is broken, corrupt, and all of this kind of thing, and needs to be rectified. Mate, you're not understanding the value of capitalism. You look, you got nice cars there, you're all wearing nice shoes, you're all fully clothed, you're all fully fed, overfed. You're standing outside in the middle of the night. It's well lit. Everyone's got electricity. Not everyone, but most people have got houses, properties, homes, apartments. There are businesses, not for much longer, but there are businesses that offer employment, that offer people a wage so they can go out and spend money on their bills, but also things that they want, things that they need. You have a working system. Your system works far better than systems in other nations. Look at that guy on his skateboard. He didn't make that skateboard. A skateboard company made that skateboard. A skateboard company made the trucks on his skateboard. They made another skateboard company made the wheels. And that guy's gone to Walmart and he's bought a skateboard. Yeah, that's what happens in capitalism. That guy sat on a motorbike. It's a nice motorbike. It's a tourer. He could have bought 1,000 different motorbikes. He chose to buy that one. He had the choice. Why? Because of capitalism. Look at you. You've got your cameras. You've got your Nikons. You've got your Canons. You've got your Sonys. You've got your DLRs, your SDLRs. You've got it all. You've got your camera straps. They're insured by the insurance companies. Yeah, you've got your backpack. You can buy a backpack for $5. You can buy a backpack for $200. You've got so much choice because of capitalism. Is the system perfect? No, the system is not perfect. Are there injustices within the system? Yes, there are injustices. Should you destroy the system because of those injustices? No, you shouldn't. You just try to improve things as you move forward, that's what's happened. But you guys on the left, you guys here that are younger, you don't realize that. You don't recognize what the system has provided you and everyone else with. You don't recognize it. You're just seeing these faults within the system, which do exist. They are real. And you're not addressing them properly. You're not coming up with solutions. You're demanding what you're using the term justice. I doubt you even know what that means. And you're tearing down. You're attempting to tear down. You're cheering on the tearing down of the system. What's going to happen? Well, at a certain point of time, in a week or 2 or 5 or 10 or 12 or 15, things will return to normal. Of course, you're going to have your coronavirus spike, which none of you give a fuck about. Clearly, not a single one of you are concerned about coronavirus. And maybe you're right. Maybe coronavirus isn't a thing. Did that guy just try to swerve into that pedestrian? I'm rambling. I got no viewers, which is fine. So I'm going to have a look at another article here. We've seen Kathy. So let's have a look at this one here. Oh yeah, I was just talking about coronavirus. This article, US cities fear protests may fuel new wave of virus outbreaks. The massive protests sweeping across US cities following the police killing of a black man in Minnesota have sent shudders through the health community and elevated fears that the huge crowds will lead to a new surge in cases of the coronavirus. Some leaders appealing for calm in places where crowds smashed storefronts and destroyed police cars in recent nights have been handing out masks and warning demonstrators that they were putting themselves at risk. Here's a quote: "If you were out protesting last night, you probably need to go get a COVID test this week. There is still a pandemic in America that's killing black and brown people at high numbers." Yeah, why have they said black and brown people? Well, apparently because black and brown people are dying at a much higher rate than white people for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is. Could be a physical reason. I remember towards the beginning of the pandemic, when it was still coming out of China, I remember reading reports that it was mostly affecting Asian males for some reason. Seems to be like a genetic thing to do with lungs. I don't know if that's still considered to be accurate. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. So it says I've got 5 playbacks. I don't know if that's true. No one's come on. No one said hello or anything. Anyway, so here's a further quote. "It's not okay that in the middle of a pandemic we have to be out here risking our lives. But I have to protest for my life and fight for my life all the time," said a protester. Look, these protesters are acting like they live constantly in chaos. They don't live constantly in chaos. That's not true, mate. That's not true. I mean, you're living in chaos right now. You're part of if you're a protester, you're causing the chaos. You are aiding and abetting the chaos. But you know, your everyday life is not embroiled in chaos, or it doesn't have to be. You know, don't pretend that America is a third world country. It isn't. I mean, you act like this, you're making it one. You're making it worse than a third world country. But that's only because of your behavior, your delinquent behavior, your belief that it's okay to be violent, to protest. It's okay to call white people fascists constantly. It's okay to say fuck Trump constantly. It's okay to turn a blind eye to the corruption and the disingenuous, the lies of the media, of the Democrats, of the WHO, the World Health Organization. It's just the willingness of the left to um, behave in this way and to allow others to behave in this way. And that's when I say this way, there's a multitude of things, but being violent, protesting, complaining, harassing those on the right, censoring those on the right, all of these kind of things. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen is in 3 weeks' time, these riots are going to be over, or whenever the time is. Coronavirus will spike and then it will calm down again, and then what? Well, there'll be a trial for the officers involved. There'll be a trial. It may take more than a year for that to happen, and in the meantime, there's going to be other incidences of black men dying at the hands of white police officers. There will be more incidences of that because that's just what happens. Yeah, I mean, you got 10, 10 black young men died in one city, Chicago, this weekend at the hand of other black young men. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens. It's just a part of your life. Um, it's a part of your system. You just have to accept it. You don't have to accept all of it. If there are areas which can be improved upon, then yeah, for sure, there's a call for that. But your system is faulty in many ways, and you can't like Tyson put a tweet out which he since deleted, and it said something very much like, if cities were to riot every time a black person killed a white person, then there will always be riots. Tyson was pointing out, look, blacks kill white people too. It happens, and it happens far more often than whites killing blacks. That's not a justification or excusing the George Floyd murder or any other murder, or George Floyd death rather, or any other murder or violence. But it's saying, hey, look, let's keep things in perspective. Anyway, I'm going to carry on to the another article, and this is another subject. So I'm moving away from the Minnesota riots. We'll check in on Reggie every now and then. Let's check in on Reggie every now and then. All right, so here's another article. Twitter, here's a Trump tweet, a quote rather. Twitter is now interfering in the 2020 presidential election. President Donald Trump accused Twitter of interfering in the 2020 presidential election after branding one of his tweets warning about election fraud as being false. They are saying my statement on mail-in ballots, which will lead to massive corruption and fraud, is incorrect, based on fact-checking by fake news CNN and the Amazon Washington Post. Twitter is completely stifling free speech, and I, as president, will not allow it to happen. The article tells us that the president has frequently warned tech companies for censoring conservatives on social media and unfairly treating Republicans, but he has also tried to work with Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey. In April 2019, Trump met with Dorsey to discuss Twitter, thanking him for keeping an open dialogue about the platform. Well, Trumpy is not happy. Trumpy is saying, look, don't fucking block my comments, bitches. Don't fucking do it. You wanna fuck with me, Jack? You really wanna come after me? You wanna block some of my tweets, well, fuck you, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to take Facebook down. I'll take YouTube down. I'll take all of you motherfuckers down. Watch me, try me, push me. Let's see it happen. That's what Trumpy is saying. And he said this before. He said, look, these big tech guys, they need to watch out. They need to be careful. And he's got it. He's got it. I guarantee he's got the argument, he's got the evidence that he needs to change the current system of social media. So far, here's my interpretation. By the way, I'm a fucking idiot. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But so far, Trumpy has largely taken a back seat and said, look, guys, you guys, big tech, your Facebooks, your YouTubes, your Twitters, you know, you're billionaires, you're making new headway in technology, you're extremely important organizations worldwide, you are the new world of communication, you're pretty important. We're going to cut you some slack. This is new territory. This is new for everyone. We don't expect you to be perfect. You do have very difficult jobs in monitoring the speech of millions, hundreds of millions of people. So, you know, it's inevitably going to be flawed, and that's fine. You know, that's just how it is. We do not expect perfection in this regard. So, big tech, we're going to cut you some slack, but we've seen what you're doing. We've seen what you're doing. You ban right-wing conservative viewpoints. You ban the notable speakers, Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Mike Cernovich, Stefan Molyneux. I think he's been banned from a few places, certainly from PayPal. Alex Jones. Oh, I mentioned Alex Jones. Yeah, Laura Loomer. You ban these guys. Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad. You ban these guys. You ban the small guys too. Look at me, white cis male. I'm banned from Twitter. Why? I was baited by some left-wing nutbag. They said, "Oh, are you going to be violent or something like that?" And I said, "Well, why would I want to be violent?" And then I got banned. Something very close to that. Permabanned. You know, you get the option to appeal the ban, and I've done that. I did it like half a dozen times or whatever. You click, and I can't remember if you have to type something or not, but it just got rejected, I presume, automatically. Why am I getting banned? I didn't fucking do anything. I seriously should not have been banned, but I was. I can't say that that was because I'm a right-wing commentator. Certainly don't have any followers on Twitter, a notable amount or anything. But I was baited and set up and reported by left-wing guys. I guarantee it. So look, Trumpy is saying, look, guys, we've given you time to stop the witch hunt on right-wing commentators, on Trump supporters, on you know, we've given you the time to do that. We've seen you allow left-wing commentators spread fear, hate, violence, and all of this kind of thing. We've seen you do that. You've not responded to them, but you do respond to those on the right. So that's a double standard. That's an unfairness, which we're not going to allow to happen. Yes, you are privately owned platforms. However, you now represent the public square. Your forums are the most important forums available worldwide in regards to communication. And it's unfair to lock out certain parts of the community, so that those that hold certain viewpoints, unless there's a very good reason to do so. And just because you don't like right-wing commentators, that's not a good enough reason. So Trumpy is he's declared war. He's declared war, and he's saying, look, we're in May, we're in June now. Practically, we're in June. There's an election in November in the US. That's 5 months away. We've just come out of Corona, or are coming out. We've now entered this whole world of riots in major cities. Who knows how long that's going to continue for? You know, maybe it does continue for several weeks. In France, the riots continued for multiple months. Are they still going? Was it a full year? Did the France riots go for a full year? I think they did. The French riots. And what, there were riots in Germany too, weren't there? So look, these are very, very troubling times for the United States. They're very troubling times in many parts of the world. Coronavirus does seem to have subsided for now. We're still all fearing a resurgence, a spike, a return to corona, potentially a return to lockdown. We're all expecting a world recession. These are really bad fucking times. And Trumpy is saying, big tech, we're not going to let you fuck things up even worse. Look, we know that Trump is not a fan of the media, fake media. Hasn't been for a long time. He's been calling out the fake media for years. Since he started, but since he was elected, or shortly thereafter. And I would say his confidence in denouncing the fake media has grown. It's now at a bit of a crescendo. It's at a bit of a crescendo. I say that in full support. I feel that he has been bullied. I feel that there is fake news, there is fake media. I believe that the media is entirely disingenuous, and I see it from the left politicians too. And maybe I don't see it from the right-wing politicians in the US. Maybe I don't see that due to bias. Maybe because I'm not really following those guys. The only guy on the right that I read about is Trump, and I view him as being honest. I'm sure he has to lie. I'm sure he has to be diplomatic at times, but largely he's very honest in my point of view. Anyway, let's have a look at another article on the same subject. Twitter's head of site integrity has a history of harsh anti-Trump tweets. Following Twitter's decision to start fact-checking President Trump, a history of harshly partisan anti-Trump tweets from the man who is head of site integrity at Twitter have surfaced. So blah, 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 blah. It's going to say some tweets here. I've never donated to a presidential campaign before, but I just gave $100 to Hillary for America. We can't fuck around anymore. Here's another from the same guy. I'm just saying we fly over those states that voted for a racist tangerine for a reason. I'm also ready to stop dwelling on how my friends are complicit in the election of Donald Trump. Almost. So yeah, look, the guy is head of site integrity for Twitter, and he's clearly biased. He's clearly very much against Trump. Here's another one. The "you are not the right kind of feminist" backlash to yesterday's marches has begun. Did we learn nothing from this election? Yes, that person in the pink hat is clearly a bigger threat to your brand of feminism than actual Nazis in the White House. So he's calling those in the White House being actual Nazis. He's obviously very far left, and he's the head of site integrity for Twitter. He's massively biased. So look, Trump is saying, you guys, big tech, you're employing double standards. You're not vetting and censoring those on the left in the same way that you are those on the right. That is a double standard that is unfair and potentially dangerous. People need to read what the right has to say. You know, we need to have balanced and varied viewpoints, and even more so when the left are riddled with fake news and disingenuousness. You know, the right are those that are coming with the facts. The right are those that are coming with the data, with the critical analysis. The right are those that are willing to have discourse, that are willing to have debates, that are willing to clarify their arguments, their points of view, that are willing to have their points of view being challenged. That's coming from the right. It's not coming from the left, as far as I can see. And I'm basically right. Anyway, let's move on to another article. Mike Pence on social media censorship of conservatives. We're just not going to tolerate it. the article says, Vice President Mike Pence told Breitbart News that the Trump administration is not going to tolerate social media and big tech companies aiming to silence conservative voices in the 2020 election. Asked during an exclusive interview about big tech companies, Pence said that President Donald Trump has made it very clear this type of behavior is unacceptable. Here's a quote from Pence. Well, the president has made it very clear that we are not going to tolerate censorship on the internet and social media against conservatives. We're just not going to tolerate it. So here again we have Pence having Trump's back. He's going, yeah, boy, Trump, you go for it, mate. I got you six, mate. I got you six. Gonna stick up for you. I ain't gonna try to subvert you. I got your back, bro. Yeah, you go out there, you lambast big tech companies. I got your back. I'm gonna come when I'm asked in interviews. I'm gonna tell it how it is. So that's what Pence is doing. I mean, I think there are accusations on the right that Pence is a stooge, that he's not actually that he doesn't actually have Trump support. But I've seen a few articles where Pence is literally supporting Trump. So I think he is a Trump supporter. Here's a commentator. The Nazis took power in Germany using many of the same tactics being utilized by the Democrats, except the Nazis were a bit more honest about it. Pence can make a name for himself if actually does something about censorship of conservatives. It's a real problem. President Trump, I support you in every way. You are one of the best presidents ever. But talk is cheap. The time for action is now. Your supporters are getting more than just mad. We have about had it with the cheating left. We cannot stand by idly as evil thrives and takes every freedom we have. Take them down, sir. We will. I don't understand the last part. But yeah, this commentator's saying, hey, look, Trump, mate, look, you're right, and it's good that Pence is supporting you, but fucking hell, mate, just, you've got the evidence. This isn't a new thing. They have a track record. An argument can be presented very easily. Go ahead, present the argument, make the changes to the law to change these social media companies, and do it now. And that law is roughly something along the lines of if they're going to be censoring people, then they are acting as a publisher, and if they're acting as a publisher, then they're liable for what they publish. Something like that, I believe, is the argument. So if they stop censoring, then they can argue that they are a platform and not a publisher. And as a platform, they are not liable for the comments of commentators. But as it is, they currently have it both ways. They claim to be a platform, and with that, have immunity against being sued for commentators' comments. But at the same time, they are enforcing their choice of censorship and doing so in arguably a unjust double standard way. So, Trump saying, enough fellas, enough is enough. Well, and I agree with that. Enough is enough. I've been talking for an hour and a half. I've not had a single viewer by the look of it. Not a single thumbs up. Not a single, yeah, the audio's fine. Not a nothing. You're all a bunch of assholes. Don't really mean that. I mean, you are who you are, and so am I. So I'm just going to end it now. So I'm going to have a look at a little bit of Reggie. What's going on with Reggie? Here's Reggie.